Kamala Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee, has granted very few interviews since taking over the top spot on the ticket, leading to criticism and speculation from both supporters and opponents. Since July, she has done just 6 formal interviews, often in friendly environments, compared to Donald Trump's more frequent media appearances. Harris's strategy appears to focus on local media and digital platforms to reach voters in battleground states, while avoiding the national spotlight. This approach has raised concerns among Democrats and Republicans alike, with some questioning whether her campaign is intentionally limiting her public exposure due to anxieties related to tough questioning or her perceived vulnerability in handling critical issues. Critics, including Republican rivals, have argued that her silence and limited public appearances reflect a lack of transparency or a desire to avoid scrutiny on key policy reversals from her failed 2020 presidential bid. Harris's awkward responses in some public settings, where she has been accused of offering word salad answers, have only fueled this narrative. For instance, in a CNN interview, she struggled to address policy changes, claiming her values remained the same, giving the Trump campaign ammunition to question her credibility. Body language experts like Carol Lieberman have even speculated that Harris suffers from imposter syndrome, possibly doubting her own qualifications for the presidency. Lieberman pointed out Harris's nervous habits, such as cackling or making exaggerated hand movements, as signs of anxiety under public scrutiny. These behaviors have sparked further concern within her campaign, with some strategists believing that minimizing her media exposure is the best way to avoid potential blunders that could harm her chances. However, the campaign itself insists that their approach is intentional and forward-thinking. They argue that by focusing on digital influencers, local news, and diverse media outlets, they are reaching voters in non-traditional ways, engaging a broader audience. Harris's team claims this strategy reflects a modern understanding of media consumption, which has evolved beyond just cable news and traditional interviews. Her campaign spokesperson, Ian Sams, emphasized that Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, are working to reach voters where they are, through various forms of media, including local stations and social media platforms. Despite these efforts, some within the Democratic Party worry that Harris's limited public profile may hinder her ability to generate enthusiasm and maintain momentum in the race. A Democratic operative close to the campaign suggested that Harris should engage more frequently with local media, particularly in battleground states, to connect with the voters who will ultimately decide the election. Others agree, noting that more exposure in less high-stakes settings could help her avoid the pitfalls of national interviews while still getting her message out. Ultimately, Harris's media strategy remains a topic of debate. While her campaign argues that their modern approach will pay off, critics on both sides of the aisle question whether avoiding tough interviews will hurt her in the long run. As the campaign progresses, it remains to be seen whether Harris will increase her media appearances or continue to rely on alternative methods of voter engagement. Regardless, her limited public exposure so far has left both allies and opponents speculating about her readiness for the highest office in the country.